and welcome back to the BraindAI Podcast. I'm your host, Lenka. This is the show for digital agencies and innovative brands focused on predictable growth. We deliver AI solutions and systems required to streamline client acquisition and automate service delivery, ensuring you are maximizing your capacity to scale. Today, we have a fantastic guest, Audrey Bogdanovic. Audrey is the founder of Accelerato, a company she started 12 years ago after a successful corporate career. She helps businesses, especially SaaS companies, scale and grow in new markets. We had a great pre-call where she shared some fascinating insights, including how she's using AI to create massive amounts of content for clients and build out entire marketing organizations with lean teams. We'll be diving into her journey from corporate life to business, her experiences with AI and automation, and the valuable lessons she learned along the way. Audrey, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's so great to be here.
Audrey, you had an amazing career journey, going from corporate, building your own successful company. What was the aha moment that made you decide to take the leap and start your own business?
I think it was a series of aha moments, but I think the most defining one was having spent 20 years in corporate, traveling 3 weeks out of 4, and then having my first child and realizing that the two were just not going to mesh, that kind of a lifestyle with family was just not ever going to work in the way that I needed it to work for both to be successful as in my career, but also to be successful as a mother. So that really kind of put me down a path of thinking, how can I make this work in a way that does set me up for success on both fronts?
Amazing. Love it. Accelerato helps companies grow, especially in new markets. What's the most exciting kind of the project you get to work on with your clients these days?
Yeah, so it's actually very varied. Typical projects we get to work on is a company that's been successful in their home market and is now looking at entering a new market, looking for growth in a new market. And it's really that moment of when you first meet each other and you start to figure out what that joint journey looks like for them. And I think it's very individual for every company. Yes, the model is the same. You have to, the kind of the research that goes into it and all of the learnings are the same. But every single company has its own journey and every market is very unique, particularly if you're looking at European markets or within the APJ region. It's so nuanced that it's almost like starting a brand new story every single time. And that's what's really exciting about it.
When we spoke first time, you mentioned that you learned that not all work is a good work. That's something that's very interesting. How do you now identify ideal clients or projects that truly align with the mission and your values?
Yeah, I think it's a statement I make to my clients as well. So I think it's whether you're talking about your own company or whether you're advising clients, I always say not every lead is a good lead. Not every project is one that you should take on. And it's, especially when you're starting out for agencies that it's just starting out or for SaaS companies coming into a new market and looking to build beta sites, quick traction, the lesson is the same. We shouldn't just leap at the first opportunity that comes our way. It really needs to fit both culturally. We need to think about, can we deliver this piece of work? Or are we stretching ourselves in a direction that actually is beyond our capabilities, whether that's our skill sets, the people that we have to hand, or whether it's the budget we have to work with. Those are the kind of foundational questions I ask myself. Is this work that is on purpose for us? Is this heading towards the goal that we have identified we want to meet? Or is this a detour somewhere that's potentially going to cost us time, money, resources that we could really be better using if we just say no to this one and focus on the ones that are aligned?
Are you always like this, or it took you a bit of time to figure it out?
It's funny you should ask that, because in my corporate career, I was always like this, but it's easier to hold that line when you have a whole corporate infrastructure behind you. But certainly I made that mistake a few times when I was first starting out with Accelerato. I did take those detours, but it was always the same lesson. So happily, it didn't take me too many goes around to figure it out. But it's just something that I think is inevitable, because everyone wants that success. Everyone wants to get on the path as quickly as possible. And sometimes the good clients versus the bad ones are not that easy to spot. Sometimes it's very easy to spot. Like it's just a body of work that you're not necessarily 100% skilled at. But sometimes it takes a little bit of digging under the covers to figure it out.
Audrey, you mentioned using AI to create a lot of content quickly for client websites. Can you tell us a little bit more about how AI helped you achieve something really big that would have been impossible otherwise?
Yeah, so I think a really great example is scaling website pages. Specifically, had a client who needed to make an SEO pivot very quickly. They'd spent years and years writing content that was not aligned to their buyer personas. SEO, from an SEO perspective, they were showing up in the completely wrong competitive context for absolutely the wrong space. So it was a huge problem because every time somebody did a search for what they actually did, they were never in that search. So we had to create a lot of content very quickly. And one of the ways that we needed to support was to create a lot of skills pages. So this is a client that does staff augmentation. And so we needed to stand up, and I'm talking, like 100 plus skills pages, an effort that would require, typically, if we were doing this the manual way without AI, there's no way we could have done that in the space of 2 quarters. But using AI, using tools like Perplexity for deep research, using AI agents to help build, to templatize and build those content pages, we were able to do it really, really quickly. And I think that's the power of AI, is to help you accelerate the speed of which you're achieving things. It's not necessarily taking the entire manual labor out of it, but it is allowing you to accelerate and templatize and replicate much swifter than a human could. But then, of course, you still have that human overlay of ensuring that the research that you've conducted is correct, verification, and then doing that final polish from a content perspective to make sure that there is that humanity to the content that you're writing, that it is not just an AI spit out. And I think that's really what makes the difference between content that resonates with people versus content that's purely, if we're writing simply for LLMs and technical SEO purposes, it's a very different type of story. But if these pages need to work double duty, if they are going to be consumed by humans as well as LLMs and algorithms, they need to really have that human element to them.
Yeah, and that was my next question. How do you balancing out, or like making sure that while you're utilizing AI, you are still authentic and human? Do you follow any specific processes to ensure that you don't get pulled in a different direction? Because sometimes it's probably easier these days, just like let AI to do a lot of things. I can see it on myself sometimes. I'm getting lazier from that.
I think you hit the nail on the head where we get lazier, and that really scares me. And that scared me right from the beginning, where you see yourself relying on AI for the most basic things. So you have to really pull yourself back from it, because it is easy to hand over all of that and just run with it. So I think that fear of becoming too lazy or dumbing yourself down because you're no longer engaging in that process of creating, you're no longer engaging in the process of research, of thinking what it means, of interpreting. And I think it's at that interpretation layer that is so critical to be checking. So I think there's a lot of value in, firstly, in training the agents correctly. So I don't think you can just use ChatGPT like you do, or whatever, Gemini, whatever tools you're using, like a Google search. I think you have to put in the upfront work to make sure that the tone of voice, the brand, the background values, all of those things are built into the agents, and that you continue to check that. And I think that's only something that a human can do, continue to do that checking. Are we still staying true to our brand? Are we still speaking in an authentic tone? But even with all of that in place, so I think the more work you do up front in training the agents, the better your outcome. But even with all of that in place, it's paying attention at those critical moments of, okay, we have the research, let's verify that the research is correct, that our sources are correct. Great, then let us do the interpretation layer, but then let's really look at what it's come back with, and let's really think about it from a human perspective and connect back to that research. And does this actually resonate? And if it resonates, then yes, we can continue on. But I think there are those key kind of checkpoints that you have to have the human intervention in order for that content to do its job properly and to land with real people.
There's a lot of AI agents popping up. It's, it is still trendy, it's out there, but I think people sometimes misuse it And
Yeah.
this is why there's just so much content out there that is just irrelevant. You can tell it's AI. So there's like a lot of conversation going on about how do you use it. To your point, like you need to train it, you need to update the knowledge base, you need to put the work in. It's not just like another shiny tool we go after and we think that it, magically resolve all of our issues.
But I think there's also an element of training and education from a client perspective where they're asking those questions as well. We have AI, can't you, why is this so expensive? Why does it continue to be so expensive? Why are ebooks as expensive now as they were before? Or why can't you just double the output? And so it's about educating the end user and the client about where that value comes in. It's not now we're suddenly not just taking a random topic, plugging it into AI, and here's your content. It simply doesn't work that way. But I think for a lot of people, that's the perception that, we're simply coming up with a topic, and that's where we begin and end with the human intervention. So I think that education piece goes both ways. It's not just about training AI. It's not just about training ourselves, but it's also ensuring that we have those conversations with our clients about what the right expectations are and what the right kind of outcomes are and what that means for them.
Starting a business has definitely a lot of pros and cons. What do you like it the most about it, and how do you balance your work life? I had a lot of people on podcasts, and it kind of controversial topic in a little bit because you're starting because of the freedom, but you actually ended up in trenches and you just keep growing and scaling. How are you navigating this?
Yeah, I think it's a very different type of freedom. I think, as with all things, you pay for your freedom. And whether you pay with a permanent role where you are beholden to a corporate entity, or whether you pay in the sense that you then end up working many more hours than you otherwise might, but it's the ability to rearrange those hours in a way that works for you and your family. I think that for me is the biggest freedom. What do I personally love about it the most, apart from that ability to flex around my children, is the fact that no two projects are the same. And that's really exciting, because it means that your career never gets stale, because every new client has its own set of challenges. They have their own ambitions, they have their own culture. And so it's really exciting to be a part of that, even if we are only part of it for a short period of time, but to be able to integrate into that, help them get on their way, help them start to see the results that they're after. In a way, it's a lot more outcome focused than if you are full time, because your job just runs ad nauseum, whereas we're brought in for a specific outcome. And so it's actually very satisfying from my perspective to see that we've reached that outcome. And then, starting a new engagement where you're starting to think about completely different things, different markets, different challenges, different ambitions, and building programs that support that.
What would be one of your recommendations or like advice for someone who just starting out and really wants to make it work? We all know that a lot of businesses kind of close shop within the first 2 years. What do you think is the secret to success?
I think being really clear on who your clients are, just ensuring that you are 100% aligned on who you're trying to target, and be very single-minded in that. I think the fewer detours you take along that path, the more likely you are to succeed. And I've seen a lot of friends who've started agencies or been contracting burn a lot of time and therefore lose a lot of money by pursuing things that were not 100% on ICP for them, as we see our own clients do those things. But I think that's pretty the number one killer. And then also just maybe accepting that it is a balance, but it is a trade-off. And I think a lot of people do come into it thinking that they will be working less, but just accepting that you will invariably actually be ending up working more. Certainly in the beginning, it's difficult because you have to build your name, you have to build credibility, client base. And so I think, always trying to over-deliver on the expectations you've set is, from a client perspective, I think referrals are everything, especially in the early years. I think referrals certainly has been, in my case, the number one driver of my business. And so it's really important to have those very strong client relationships and to make sure that you are delivering more value than they were expecting you to deliver.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And still, a lot of agencies, referrals are the main kind of driver for new business in general. The only time when agencies looking a little bit outside of the box is, when they really want to scale massively and they want to have some predictable growth, because, that's the only disadvantage with referrals. Like you never know when they'll come.
Yes.
But yeah, I couldn't agree more. Looking at the future, what kind of excites you about the AI for the business or like in personal life?
It's got incredible potential for smoothing everyone's path. But I think that has to be balanced with how much do we want to hand over? And I think that's a very personal journey. For me, I like to be more in control. I like it, the fact that I can get to information a lot quicker. So for me, that's exciting. I don't like handing over the ability to think. So I love the fact that I can do the deep searches and to get to really nuanced information much quicker. So I think from that perspective, it's freeing up like so many more possibilities to be able to learn, like just for learning perspective, the things that would maybe take months to learn, you can get to very quickly with AI. You can get to the foundations of a topic very quickly. So I think from that perspective, from a personal development perspective, the possibilities are endless. But I think only if we use it in the right way, if we don't devolve our thinking process to it.
What do you think will be happening in agencies world? I think we slowly shifting with the AI. I think the kind of nature of the businesses and agencies, how they work with clients is evolving. What do you think will be the biggest interrupter that could potentially make you even make it or you break it?
I think adopting processes, like demonstrable processes that allow you to leave real tangible value with a client. So they're no longer just looking for us to advise, but certainly what I'm hearing from clients, not just my clients, but my clients' clients, is we're no longer about buying bodies, as it were. So they're no longer coming to an agency backfill simply for roles they don't have. They're coming to an agency for us to really help them co-create additional value. So all of my clients are being asked to do more with less. So I see a lot of companies, cutting out the junior level roles because they're replacing those with AI. And that's kind of a double-edged sword, because on the one hand, that's okay for now, but somebody has to take those junior level resources because they're actually the senior level strategists of 10 years from now. So we're currently in that really weird place where everybody is all about streamlining, cost cutting, and replacing those junior level roles, even the mid-tier roles, with AI. But there isn't that long-term view of, okay, but what happens when, you and I retire? What happens when their existing strategists retire? Who's coming up the ranks? So I think we all need to take responsibility for that potential knowledge gap in the years to come. I think that could be a major disruptor and not for the good in years to come. But in the meantime, it is about co-creating value with clients and using AI to streamline processes, to create frameworks that help them achieve more, because it's just inevitable that we're all being asked to do more with less.
I did have another guest in a podcast and we were chatting about what would you do if you were junior, just starting out in, marketing or in our industry? What would you do and how would you approach it? And it's harder to move through ranks because the agencies are changing, but they don't really necessarily know why, or like they don't really have logic behind. They just know they need to quickly implement AI. They don't really put a lot of thinking behind this. And then the young talent kind of suffers in a sense because the expectations are even too high, or there's just no roles for them. So how do we protect the future of us? That's definitely a big question.
I think that's largely unresolved. I just ran a client advisory board in the US last week, and the message was consistently the same from all of the clients. They'd already let go of the junior developers, and they were now working their way through the mid-tier. So they were really saying, all we need is our senior level engineers, and then we're going to use agencies with AI to co-create that additional value that we've taken out of those two tiers, which I think in a short term could be work, but I'm just not sure that will scale for the long haul, I think. even if we take the backfill of that talent rising up the ranks, I don't know. It's almost feels a little bit like the outsourcing kind of phase that we went through, where everybody cut onshore resources, outsourced to cheaper countries, only to do the same pivot 3 or 4 years later when that model no longer was proving to be working. So initially it seems like a great idea because it allows them to lower their cost base, but ultimately the client experience was such that they were bleeding clients as a result of those interactions. So I'm worried that we may see that same pivot where there is such a rush to have bots involved in customer service, sales, SDR work right across the board. But I wonder if people will vote with their feet in the same way that they did with the outsourcing phase, and we'll see a somewhat partial swing back to a more balanced model.
So true. I'm loving this conversation, but I'm also mindful of the time. Last question before I let you go. If someone would like to get in touch with you or learn more about Accelerato, what would be the best way?
Yep. So www.accelerato.co or just ping me on LinkedIn.
And for all our listeners, all these links will be down below in the description. Let us know what are your thoughts on the future of AI and how this will disrupt our agency world. Looking forward to our next interesting podcast. Bye.
Thanks.